When it comes to developing your physique by building muscle and or losing fat, the first place we usually look to maximize our results is in the practical tactics. And when referring to practical tactics, I'm talking about things like picking the right exercises, picking the best training split, doing the optimal number of reps and sets, moving with good exercise technique, and of course, eating a diet that's conducive of getting results. Of course, all of the practical tactics are important when it comes to maximally developing your physique and getting results. Absolutely. And there's no shortage of online content and videos made by a vast array of different fitness creators who each share their take on what exactly is optimal for each of those practical tactics, myself included. Something I've learned throughout my journey in developing my physique to eventually become a pro natural bodybuilder is that there are arguably things that are even more important than focusing on the practical tactics alone when it comes to getting the best results possible. In fact, even if you've nailed your exercise selection, you're moving with the optimal number of reps and sets, you've got great exercise technique, and you're really dialed in with all of the practical tactics involved with developing your physique, without these other, arguably more important things, or components as I'll call them, you might be significantly holding yourself back from developing your physique as much as you otherwise could be. What are these components, you ask? Well, in this video, while showing you footage from my latest full body gym workout, I'm going to share what each of them are with you, as well as what my personal experiences have been with each of them. My hope in sharing them with you is that in knowing and understanding them, you can implement them and put them into practice so that you can maximally develop your own physique and get the best results possible. Before we get started, if you find this video to be helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's dive in. When I was in my mid to late 20s, I was particularly dogmatic about my training approach. Shoot, I was dogmatic about it before that, especially when it came to what I thought the best training split was for me. But especially in my mid to late 20s, I was particularly dogmatic about it all. See, for me personally, the way my brain works is that if I'm going to do something to accomplish a goal, like developing my physique, then I ought to spend my time working towards that goal as efficiently as possible. During my mid to late 20s was when the evidence-based fitness school of thought began to really take off. This is when online fitness creators started to refer and cite research studies to support why or why not certain training or nutrition approaches were optimal for muscle growth or fat loss. With my personal interest in spending my time lifting weights and eating to maximize my own physique progress, naturally, I was enthralled by the evidence-based world. Menno Henselmans, Brad Schoenfeld, Jeff Nippert, Eric Helms, and all of the other evidence-based content creators, researchers, and fitness professionals were my go-tos for how to maximize my progress. See, I became dogmatic about taking a completely evidence-based approach to training and dieting. Anything outside of what my understanding was of being supported by the scientific research, I wouldn't do. And there would be no way you could make me do it. I was married to my own evidence-based approach. Now, this wasn't inherently bad. In fact, it led me to make tons and tons of progress and learn a heck of a lot. After all, if the science was supporting that my approaches were working well, then naturally I would see great progress. But here's the thing with the fitness research and science. The research that's done is imperfect. It doesn't tell the whole story. A single study or group of studies are merely a small fraction of the entire picture. And oftentimes, the interpretation of research changes over months and years upon collecting more or new data through continued research, leading to differing conclusions about what might be optimal or not. There are also things that are just flat out not yet known as to what is truly optimal or not, simply because not enough research has yet been done. So, although my dogmatic evidence based approach did lead me to build a significant amount of muscle, what I've learned since then is that when it comes to maximizing results, I've found that it's actually best to not be completely dogmatic. Because of the imperfect nature of fitness science, or really science in general, by boxing myself into an approach that is purely supported by research, I might actually be missing out on other approaches, perhaps ones that are not yet scientifically proven, that are actually better or more effective. These might be approaches learned from other fitness professionals or bodybuilders, their own experiences or anecdotes, or my own personal process of trialing different approaches. Upon being more open to those non-specifically researched approaches, I've actually found ways of making even more effective progress compared to sticking solely with the evidence-based research approach. I'll give you one example. For several years, I trained with a full body split 7 days a week, hitting each muscle for an average of 3 sets per session, so a total of 21 sets on average per muscle per week, give or take. The research at the time supported the prospect that high-frequency 7-day-a-week training with that relatively high amount of weekly set volume would lead to pretty optimal muscle growth progress in combination with eating a great diet and getting lots of sleep. Did I make lots of muscle growth progress from taking that approach? Yeah, definitely. I did, however, also experience some serious progress stalls, some relatively frequent nagging injuries, and some psychological staleness from taking this approach. Even as someone who absolutely loves training, things were pretty stale at times. Since then, I've taken a less scientifically proven approach, or at least an approach that wasn't as scientifically proven at the time. I now train less frequently and with less set volume. Specifically, I train 4 days a week with only 2 sets per muscle on average. That's an average of just 8 sets per muscle per week, plus some added drop in myorep volume. But you know what? Since taking this approach, I've made progress faster. I've been building more muscle, breaking through plateaus more easily, getting stronger faster, and running into nagging pains less frequently. All this to say, the less research-proven optimal muscle growth approach, or at least my understanding of a research-proven optimal approach, has actually been more optimal for muscle growth for me. And it's only through scrapping my previously dogmatic mindset that I was open enough to take this approach and thereby get better results because of it. And that's the first component. Be open to your training and nutrition approach rather than overly dogmatic about it. You never know. From sticking with a dogmatic approach, you might unknowingly be holding yourself back from something that could otherwise lead you to making significantly better progress. Okay, on to the next one. Throughout my years lifting weights, I've developed nagging injuries many more times than I'd like to admit. Something I've come to learn is that when it comes to developing your physique, and specifically when it comes to building muscle, nagging injuries and pains occurring here and there ought to be an expected cost of doing business, as much as I wish it wasn't true. Just think about it. Building muscle is hard. It means pushing your body to experience more and more tension as time goes by, and that means regularly pushing your limits. Naturally, in regularly pushing your limits, things are bound to get a little bit beat up every now and again. As such, one of the most important skills I've learned, and that I think everyone ought to learn when it comes to building muscle, is how to adapt to those pains and nagging injuries. In fact, I consider that skill as being one of the key parts to having the capacity to building a significant amount of muscle over time. This understanding, however, came to me after stubbornly learning it the very hard way over a very long period of time. See, particularly in my earlier years lifting weights, I experienced a decently frequent rate of nagging pains and injuries. Part of this was from expected wear and tear of hard training, yes, but another big part was from training with poor technique and a reckless, barbarian-like approach to lifting, which was very problematic in itself. I could make an entire video on that latter point, mainly how not to train. But what I want to focus in on this video is this. Upon experiencing nagging pains and injuries, my biggest failure was in not working around the pain once it had appeared. Rather, I would aim to work through the pain, try to ignore it, try to just truck through it. And I did that in hopes that it would just magically heal, that the pain would just go away. Of course, with that approach, the pain wouldn't heal. How could it if I was simply trucking through each pain and injury and making each of them worse? Looking back in hindsight, what I should have done is obvious. I should have found ways of working around the pain instead of working through the pain and making it all worse, whether that be from decreasing the weight I was lifting, slowing my rep tempo, or changing exercises. That's what I should have done. But I didn't. Why not? Well, in short, because I had emotionally attached myself or attached my ego to what I was doing, the exercises I had programmed, the amount of weight I was lifting, the number of reps I was doing, and the prospect of changing my approach was, at the time, too uncomfortable for me. After all, severing any kind of attachment is uncomfortable, I suspect. The problem was that, in failing to sever my emotional, ego-driven attachment to my pain-aggravating approaches, was that the nagging pains and injuries would only get worse. And you know what that means? My physique progress would stall, in addition to just experiencing the drudgery of ongoing pain, which also really sucked in itself. So here's the component to muscle growth I should have put into practice. I should have refrained from emotionally attaching myself to any of my approaches, and I should have been more flexible to changing my approach or my approaches in order to strategically work around whatever pain or injuries I was experiencing. Again, I've learned that knowing how to work around pain is an essential skill when it comes to building muscle. So trying to keep myself unmarried or detached from my approach in order to seamlessly make changes as needed to avoid pain is very helpful. When I was a younger lifter, I used to stress and worry a lot. Speaking of pains and injuries, that would definitely stress me out. And so would things like having to step outside of my regular workout and eating routine, or from having a bad workout. I've got kind of a melancholic personality that tends to lean towards a fixation on the negatives, things that I consider to be undesirable for me, pain, irregularities, that kind of thing. And as such, with that kind of ongoing worry and stress, I would experience a good deal of mental and emotional discomfort. I would focus on the negative. And you know what I found for myself? When mentally and emotionally fixating on the negatives, that negativity seems to have a physical manifestation too. I often feel lower in energy, weaker, and more fearful of injury. The mind is very much connected to the body, that's for sure. This is in stark contrast to recognizing and focusing more on the positives. Positives that come to mind for me are things like recognizing my own physique progress, getting in a great stimulative workout, and or simply being grateful for having the opportunity to work out and eat in a way that's overall conducive of muscle growth, something I really care about. In fixating my mindset on the positives, everything is better. My workouts, my energy, my strength progress. And that's the third component, recognizing that having a positive outlook on the process of developing your physique is a massive help in maximizing your rate of progress. If your mental positive outlook has a positive physical effect, leaving you higher in energy, less fearful of injury, and simply more excited to get after it, then you're almost certainly going to develop your physique faster and more efficiently. Not to mention, you'll have a far better experience in doing so. No, I know that this is easier said than done. Seriously. For me personally, this is something that takes ongoing effort and energy. And oftentimes, I really fail at it. Even though I think it's worth trying to do, having a positive outlook just makes everything better. And that's it. Yes, optimizing the practical tactics to developing your physique is important for maximizing progress. And by practical tactics, I'm referring to things like exercise selection, exercise technique, rep and set volume, diet, and so on. But the other three components to maximizing progress are equal or perhaps even more important when it comes to getting the best results possible. I'm talking about the first component, which is being open to your training and diet approach rather than being overly dogmatic about it. The second component, which is staying emotionally detached from your training approach in the event that you need to modify or adjust it in order to work around pain. And the third component is aiming to adopt a positive outlook rather than fixating on the negatives. Each of those three components have had a profound positive impact on my journey lifting weights to develop my physique and eventually become a pro natural bodybuilder. And I hope that by sharing them with you, it helps you out as well. At this point, I'd love to know your feedback. Let me know your thoughts and insights in the comment section below. Before this video comes to a close, I want to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos or Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition, and I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below, where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.